Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting episode of Sports World with Patrick. Today, I'm your host, Patrick, and today we've got an incredible guest, a true leader on and off the field. I'm joined by Jean-Paul Circelli, the head coach of the University of Windsor's football team. Coach Circelli, it's thank you so much for being here today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. So let's go ahead and jump right in. You've had a long and successful career in coaching, and now you're leading the University of Windsor Lancers. What made you want to step into the role of head coach, and what's it like um, been like to build the program there in Windsor?
Well, first of all, Patrick, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate you reaching out and getting a chance to share with you and your audience. Really, for me, coaching's been a lifelong dream. I've got a real passion for the sport of football, but also a great passion for teaching and for coaching. And this is something that I've been doing for a very long time. And when the opportunity came to really take over a program, put our own stamp on it, we just jumped at that opportunity. And that's really what brought us to the University of Windsor.
And then obviously, I can really tell, you have passion for it. I've gotten to look at your record there, at Windsor. I know with how close Windsor and Detroit are. I know right now the Detroit Lions' success on and off the field has had a huge impact. Um, so I want to ask you this because I know as closely knitted as Detroit and Windsor are, has do you think the game has gotten more popular since the Lions have had so much success and the interconnections that Windsor and Detroit have?
I think it might be more of a coincidence. I think I started a year prior to Dan Campbell, but a lot of the things that we were talking about were the same messages about changing culture, changing what the perception is, making it about the community. I'm not sure if football itself has become more popular as a result, but definitely the positivity and the notoriety that football is garnering and the importance of its impact, not just in Detroit, but our community as well, is definitely tied to the success of the Lions because for so many fans and people, this is the best stretch that the Detroit Lions have gone through, um, really, since their NFL championship. So we're talking generations, 50 plus years, and we're in the same boat. We're going through the best stretch that the Lancers have had. Um, that we haven't seen since their Co-Yates Cup championship in 1975. So some similarities in that regard. Similarities in the fact that there's a lot more people coming out to our games, and obviously it's you got to be very well off to find your way into Ford Field. So I think if you're looking from similarities from that standpoint, that the teams are becoming more successful. There's a lot more fanfare within the community. Some of the dynamics that our team has looked at improving, starting with culture. Definitely, Coach Campbell and his staff have done that as well. So I think just the fact that both programs are doing well, it's a positive. But obviously, the NFL is always king, and that's going to be the one that drives everything.
Um, and obviously, as I've been mentioning, the Lancers have really been improving, growing and improving under your leadership. And you mentioned how your leadership style is the same as Campbell is. What would you say are the key aspects of your coaching philosophy, and what do you stress the most to your players?
Well, so much of it is really establishing, who you are, what your philosophy is, what you believe in. And anytime you come into a program, especially one that hasn't had a lot of success in a long time, you have to be very clear with what are we doing? How are we building it? You need to start with putting the right people in the building and putting the right seats on the bus type of thing. So it's not just myself. I've got great support staff, great coaches, great athletic director, great dean they're very supportive in what we do, but they're also in the right roles. So we've got a fantastic offensive coordinator, fantastic defensive coordinator, fantastic offensive line coach. These guys understand what it means to be in those roles and how to get the most out of developing their players. But then if we look at from an athletic director standpoint, our athletic director, Stephanie White, and her staff are incredibly supportive and do so much behind the scenes that people don't see. And ultimately, a lot of that comes down to the dean, Dr. Linda Rohr, who says, we know how important this is going to be. We know what you're trying to do. You understand the development of the student athlete is first and foremost. So when you have people behind you, it makes a huge difference. So having the right people is really step one. Step two is what is it that your philosophy is all about? What are your core values? And one big thing that we stress all the time is love, serve, and care. And when you have these foundational blueprint for your program, all their players, all their coaches, all their support staff know about it, and they understand what love, serve, and care means. And from that, you can really develop, what's my mission? What's my vision? What is it that we're ultimately trying to achieve? And when you've got that common goal that people can get behind, that's one of the reasons that you've seen such an improvement and such a different trajectory for the University of Windsor Lancer football program.
You and Coach Campbell definitely have that very close, are very close in your coaching philosophies because of the fact that a lot of student athletes, they when they go off to high school or even before they enter into university, their lives are very different. A lot of them are either stressing about making sure they've got the grade so that they can continue playing the athletics, or they're trying to get to the best, or they're trying to get their best grade, but sometimes they leave some of their personal issues on and off the field, um, inside of them. And I know mental toughness is such a big thing to talk about, definitely when it comes to athletics, because sometimes some people, it's harder for them to be mentally mentally right, just for and it's always okay not to be okay, but obviously they struggle with the classwork. And some students go into their first year at a university, and they fall straight on the ground. But what are some of the ways that you've helped the athletes that you've had at Windsor, the University of Windsor, in building that mental toughness to be able to take that on beyond just after their time at the University of Windsor?
Yeah, there's so many different factors that come into it, and where people's background and what their experiences are, who their mentors are, if any. So for us, a big part of it is understanding the main reason people are here is to use football to set up the next part of their life. It's about getting not just that undergrad degree, but it's also looking at master's, professional school. Use this time as you go through football to set up where you need to go next in your life. And so many student athletes, and you kind of hit it on the head there, struggle with the motivation of, getting into school and going through school. And for many of them, sport is what keeps that motivation going. But ultimately, we want our players, the vision of the programs, yeah, we want to win. Make no question about that. Winning is super important. But unlike the NFL, it's not the be all end all for us, because ultimately we need to make sure that our young men leave here as better sons. They need to leave here as better husbands, as better fathers, as really contributing members to society. So if winning's the only thing that motivates us and drives us, then we're going to fall short. And for so many of our coaches and support staff, it's about looking through society and seeing that it's the lack of good male role models, strong role models, father figures. We need to make sure we're developing our student athletes so when they go off, they're set to do that. And so I think a lot of the biggest success stories, it's easy to look at guys playing pro. This past year we had 3 guys get drafted, and one of them was top 6 pick in the draft. George Una goes to British Columbia. And he's an individual that came in and wasn't great in school initially, and had to kind of define where he was work ethic wise. But going through 5 years with us and understanding that development, he's now completing teachers college, and he knows when that football part ends, and it will. It always does. He's going to have a job in education going forward. And no different than a number of our guys right now are at the National Combine. Kalade Musin, he was the leader in sacks the last couple of years, and all Canadian. Well, he's already completed his MBA. So again, he's going to get a chance to play pro. and I think he could have a long career. But again, when it ends, he's going to use that networking ability to set up a job somewhere else along the line, somewhere in business because of his MBA background. No different than what we tell anyone else. It's about using that time to set up where you need to go. But very few end up playing pro. And I think that maybe the success stories that we're most proud of is seeing the guys that we started coaching 5 years ago come back now, and they're married and they have children, and they're now, strong alumni for us, and they understand the importance of that family atmosphere. Those are the success stories that you can really lean on. That's where we say, hey, this is really accomplishing the vision of what our program's all about. Because it's easy to say, hey, we want you to come play football and get an education, but there has to be more drive behind it. And there has to be more than just we're trying to win games, because so many things have to happen for you to be successful. A lot of times it's out of your control. And again, I don't want to make the comparison that we're the exact same as the Lions, but there was a lot of fanfare going in this year with where we finished in 23, similar to the Lions. And one of the biggest things we had to overcome that ultimately did us in, similar to the Lions, is when you have double-digit starters injured and out, you can have all the depth in the world, but eventually that stuff catches up with you. So to say, hey, it's a failure because we didn't win, uh, to be where we're at and to have the program where it is, that itself is a big success story. And what we're doing with our student athletes going forward, and similar to Detroit, we're going to regroup and get ready for the next year. Because the one thing that I think sometimes people forget is every year is a new year. It's a new group of people. No team is ever the same. And so all we can really do is get ready for what 2025 looks like. But ultimately what drives us and what makes sure that our student athletes are doing the best they can and having that ability to move forward is understanding this is what our philosophy is. This is what our vision is. We want you to use your opportunity here to set up the next part of your life going forward.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that people are discounting from the Lions next year is that with everyone healthy, it'll probably be a very, very scary team, and the way that the team itself is just ready to roll with Dan Campbell. And obviously, um coach, it's clear that you're prioritizing building a strong and resilient athletes there. Now I do have to ask you this also. What's one of the most memorable moments you've had as a coach at Windsor? 'Cause I'm sure you have a few standout there. Is there one that you can that has really struck with you or stuck with you? Sorry.
Yeah, you know what? There's a lot of big memories. I think one that's really impactful was our hosting our first playoff game in and it must have been 15 plus years there, in 2023, taking on Carleton Ravens, beating them right at the last second, um, holding on for a victory, winning at home. How that really propelled us into the next round, and coincidentally going on to take a very strong Laurier team that had beat us quite soundly earlier in the year, and being um, officials call or decision away from tying the game. We end up losing that, which is hard, and that's part of the game. But I think the fact that we showed the resilience to win at home and then go on the road and take on a team that no one really gave us a chance, and to be right there, I think that's something that was really special with the time that we've had at Windsor, and is something that we can look to, going forward.
That's definitely incredible. I know it can be hard when losing to one call from the officiating crew, or even when they review a play and that happens. But obviously, seeing players succeed is always good. And now, coach, I know Windsor in Canada, for the most part, it's always known for hockey. Um, so let's talk a little bit here. But what has about your approach to recruiting? Windsor obviously has a lot of talent in the region, also because of how close its connection is to Detroit and Ann Arbor. But what do you look for in a player when you're recruiting them to Windsor?
I think we're really unique here, in the city and community of Windsor, because I would say maybe we are on par with hockey, unlike any other city across Canada. Football is a big deal here. It matters. I'm sure per capita, no one has sent more players to play professionally than this area. And I think a big part of that is the fact that you need people who are going to take on that blue collar mentality of this area. And so you talk about mental toughness, mental fortitude. That's the kind of person we want to bring in here. When we're looking at recruits, first and foremost, you have to have talent. I know a lot of times people will talk about, grades have to be at a certain level and you have to have this kind of demeanor. First and foremost, there has to be talent. Because there's lots of people who are very strong academically and great character people, but don't have talent. So talent's number one. After that, you can start looking, okay, do they qualify academically? Is this someone that's going to have success at this institution, or is university just not an option for them? And really the tiebreaker we talk about a lot of times is the character aspect. What kind of person is this individual? What do they do when no one's watching? What are the teachers, the custodians, the secretaries, the office administrative staff? What are they saying about this individual at the high school level? What are their opponents saying? What does it look like when you watch a full game tape? Anyone can put 10 plays together and look really impressive, but does someone have a motor throughout the whole game? So there's a lot of different aspects we look for. But I think one piece that's really important is, do they fit the moniker of the city? Do they fit that blue collar mentality that they're going to come in and no matter what someone's going to say, know that you're coming to the end of the road. This is the last spot. You got to put up or shut up. That's the kind of athlete that we want here, that's going to play with sandpaper, have an edge, and make sure that when things get tough, they're going to answer the bell. And it's going to be an athlete that puts together a product on the field that's, this community can be real proud of, because wow, that effort was there right from the start to the end of the game, and that's something that we've really prided ourselves on.
Yeah, obviously it's such a special, and I keep going back to this, the bond between Detroit and Windsor, which is almost incredible. I think the very last time I went was during the summer, and the amount of people that you will see, like just in the Detroit area from Windsor, and how nice the people in Windsor are. Haven't had a chance yet to get over there, but obviously it's very very exciting. And so I do have this very interesting question, because obviously we know when students they get to college, sometimes they like to go out and party, sometimes they like to go to the casinos and all that. And I recently had a hockey head coach from the UNLV, and he mentioned a lot of the same um, stuff that he looks for in a player when they want to play for UNLV, for you, or for UNLV, that you've mentioned that you want for when you, or for players that play for you. You know, um, and I know there is the casino right there, just off the river in Detroit, with Caesars in Windsor. Does that ever become an impactful part? Because I know he said that a lot of kids in at UNLV, fall trapped to, just walking onto the strip and going to the casino every single day.
No, haven't seen that. Um, Obviously, if we're talking about the Vegas Strip, it's going to be a lot more alluring that we have here in Windsor. Not to say that there aren't temptations, but a lot of times when we have our weekly culture meetings, we'll talk about some of the pitfalls that are out there. But ultimately, these guys have to own their own 20 square feet. They've got to believe what they want to believe and choose to act the way they're going to act. I'm ultimately going to be responsible for it, but it's going to be their choice. And we hope that we've treated them properly and we've talked to them about what to be aware of and about always being together. But ultimately, I'm never going to be out with them on a weekend, so a lot of it's going to be up to the players to make sure they're making those right choices and using good judgment.
And I definitely love to hear that. Because obviously character and academics are a big thing, Coach. Um, Now before we get to the final part of or the final few questions, we're gonna lighten up with things with a few fun questions. Um, so are you ready, Coach?
Absolutely.
All right, here we go. What is your favorite pregame meal?
Favorite pregame meal? I would say anything with pasta is really a go-to. I know one of the favorites here is chicken parm for our guys. A lot of guys enjoy a chicken parm and pasta meal, so I'd say that's probably the go-to.
And then for your next one, if you weren't coaching football, what do you think you'd be doing?
Oh, I'm that's a tough one. My background's in education, but yeah, maybe you get a chance to go on Saturday Night Live or something like that. Have some fun, do some skits. That might be enjoyable.
Yeah. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
I would probably want to meet with former San Francisco 49ers head coach Bill Walsh, pick his brain about how he's gone about creating programs. So much of what we do here stems from the culture that he created in San Francisco, and a lot of other teams have taken it on from there. But I would probably say Bill Walsh. He was probably one of the first that I saw do it and document it, and he's got a lot of books out there. So I'd like to pick his brain.
And then the very last question, what is the craziest superstition you have had in your career?
Craziest superstition. I usually keep a stone or small rock in my shoe. It's something that I once heard Bill Parcells talk about, how you always want to be uncomfortable. And we talk a lot with our team about get comfortable being uncomfortable. So it's kind of a reminder that it's never going to be 100%. And as soon as you think you've made it, as soon as you think you've arrived, disaster's usually right around the corner. So you always have to have your guard up and always be working, because even when you think you've gone to that spot and like, wow, pat yourself on the back, the next challenge is right there and the next team opponent is ready to go.
So, Coach, I'm going to ask you these last few questions here. Obviously, as a coach, coaches oftentimes look ahead into the future. Um, what is your biggest goal for the Lancers football program uh, in the future before you decide to hang it up from your coaching career that you have at the moment?
It's been the goal since day one. We want to win the championship. So, like I said, it hasn't been done since 1975. We're at 50 years. So I think a lot of people would say 50 years is long enough. Let's make that happen. And that would be the ultimate team goal here. And I think it'd be a special moment for the entire city if we can make that happen.
And then, very last question is obviously with Windsor, as special as it is, but obviously,
Okay.
but obviously, if Windsor, let's say in the future, because I feel like one of these days Windsor will finally get that NFL team. Maybe it'll be competing against the Lions there for a minute. But obviously, um, do you think that would be a chance, or do you think that would even be an opportunity that you would be willing to take to coach a Windsor NFL team?
If an opportunity to ever coach an NFL team came up, I would definitely jump at that. That sounds like a lot of fun and a real special opportunity.
Yeah, it's obviously Coach. It's obviously been a pleasure having you today. For all the listeners of the Sports World with Patrik, um, for all the listeners, be sure to follow up with Coach Jean-Paul Circelli and the University of Windsor Lancers as they continue to make strides on and off the ice. And we'll be back next time with more guests, stories from the sports world. Until then, keep pushing your limits, believing in the power of sports. Take care, everybody.